Hello and welcome to another episode of Podcast DX, the show that brings you interviews with people just like you or Crystal, whose lives were forever changed by a medical diagnosis. I'm Lita,
I'm not Jean Marie. I'm Ron.
and Jean may or may not be joining us. She's currently resting with a migraine. If she pops in, great. If not, we'll be sitting here taking up her space. Today we're talking about something completely different, off the wall, the dark side of social media advocacy. What happens when the same platforms that help us raise awareness also expose advocates and patients to trolls, bullies, stalkers, and people who deliberately twist the truth to damage a person's reputation? We'll start with personal experiences, and then in the second half, we'll walk through concrete tools and safety steps for anybody that's confronted with harmful posts online.
Our guest today is a returning friend of the show. She joined us previously to talk about fibromyalgia, chronic pain, and life as a veteran living with an invisible illness.
Yep.
We're honored to welcome back Crystal Kent. Crystal is an Army veteran, fibromyalgia advocate, and a patient leader with more than 20 years of social service experience. She educates the fibromyalgia community about her illness, how to advocate for their healthcare needs, and also how to apply for disability benefits and entitlements. She also advocates for military veterans diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
She's the founder of the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles and co founder of Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia. And she's received multiple awards for her advocacy work, including 2 WeGo Health Awards. Her voice has helped countless patients feel seen and supported. Crystal, thank you so much for coming back to talk with us, especially about such a tough topic. For listeners who may have missed your first episode, can you briefly remind us how you got involved in fibromyalgia advocacy and social media work to begin with?
Sure. So back in 2014, I started my journey sharing my experiences as a veteran with fibromyalgia on social media because there wasn't a lot of community support or up-to-date information out there, and there definitely wasn't a space for military service members and veterans living with fibromyalgia. So I started chronicling my experiences with fibromyalgia on social media, and that parlayed into the Fibromyalgia Pain Chronicles, and then my organization, Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia.
Okay. All right.
That's great, Crystal. But at some point, your advocacy went from supporting community to also attracting trolls and bullies. Can you take us back and take the listeners back a little bit to at first when you realized, hey, this isn't just a disagreement, this is targeted harassment? And what did that first look like when it happened?
Uh, so a lot of times people would make inappropriate comments on my posts, trying to debate me or engage me in an argument on social media about fibromyalgia being a fake illness or questioning if I really served in the military. And a lot of times in those instances, I just wouldn't engage and I would block them. However, there have been times where individuals kind of troll would then send me DMs or emails along the same lines of saying how fibromyalgia was a mental illness or it's not a real illness,
Oh,
saying I was lying about my military service to get attention. And in those instances, again, it's just ignore and block.
Okay. So
Mhm.
when the attacks started, they were really using public posts and public threads, but also sending nasty DMs directly to you, questioning your diagnosis or your service, and they were trying to pick apart your post, right?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that just like to cause conflict. So generally speaking, I can recognize those and it just
Okay.
rolls off my back. And it's kind of learning when it's necessary to respond and when it's just simply ignore it and block. But there have also been times where I would block a person and then they would create other profiles to
Oh my
continue.
God.
Yeah.
That's going over the top.
Well, yeah, I had an incident in 2018 that was kind of like that, where they would leave disparaging comments or create posts tagging my page, the fibromyalgia people, saying I was a fraud or
Hmm.
fibromyalgia is a fake illness. And you can block all those pages, but once they start creating other ones, you kinda just have to document it, snap capture those things, and save them. And this individual went on to try to find my address online, and they
Wow.
posted an address, but it was my old address from when I was married. And I was like, "Oh, you can show up at my ex-husband's place, I don't care."
Boy, you
He
got
won't.
me realizing that I should probably double check all my social media accounts and make sure that I don't have addresses on there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was an old address, so I was like, "Yeah, you could show up at my ex's house, he's a veteran as well, he ain't gonna play with this person."
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been everything from comments to what I call nasty grams, where they message you privately or email you, but depending on if it's just for myself, if it's just what I consider mild harassment, I just block them from all my social media and my email, and 9 times out of 10, that alleviates the situation.
But you've got a lot of work that you do, and to have to play babysitter and watch for these people's comments and erase them, I mean, that makes it hard for your work,
It does, but I utilize a lot of social media tools to that flag those type of things.
okay?
So one of them is a tool is you can put in specific words or even hashtags if they use that word hashtag, their comment is automatically hidden from
That's good to
everyone.
know.
Yeah, that is
That's
good
real
to
good to
know.
know. But I gotta imagine that when you went into this, you were thinking, I'm certain, I believe anyways, that you're thinking, "Oh, this is great. I've got stories, I've got information I can share." I could imagine, I'm guessing though, that it hit you like a ton of bricks when all of a sudden you're starting to get all this nasty crap being thrown at you when you're trying to provide a service.
Right.
I mean, yes and no. I realized from the beginning I was opening myself up and being vulnerable to help support and validate other people living with fibromyalgia, chronic illnesses, veterans alike. It was something I was aware could happen prior to starting this online presence. And so I feel that kind of prepared me, and that's why I utilized moderation tools on social media to curtail some of that behavior. And quite honestly, being in the army, they took my feelings a long time ago. And sometimes I don't typically respond to that kind of stuff, but every once in a while, I will in a humorous, sarcastic twist. Like I had someone message me saying that my only problem was I wasn't ill. I was just failing at life. And when I looked at this person's spelling, it was all over the place. And I simply responded, well, obviously you failed all of your 5th grade spelling quizzes. So there's that. And then I let them read that and then I blocked them.
That's
Okay.
funny.
Okay. Well, for so many advocates, that's not really just name calling. I mean, if people misquote you or put your screenshots out of context, or even spread rumors to damage your reputation, how do you take care of those type of misrepresenting your words type of people, or
It
your motives?
it
How did that play
depends.
out?
It really depends. Like if someone were to say, "Hey, this person's faking their illness," and they tag my page or something,
Yeah.
those people typically don't have a lot of respondents to those posts, and
Okay.
when they do, those people can go and look me up and be like, "No, she's kinda credible." Like, "Oh, she's got all these recognitions from state governments or congressional recognition or these awards," it's kinda like picking your battles,
Right.
but when it's something that's slanderous to undermine my character, a lot of times, if you report those posts, and it might take more than once to report it, but it does violate community standards on all social media platforms, and I've done that, or I've had people see someone post something that was false about me, and they, reported it, and those posts were removed by the social media platform.
Did they just remove the post, or did they um, block the people or disable their account when they're noticing that they're doing stuff fraudulently or trying
So,
to
it
smear
depends.
you?
It depends. Like, the policy on most social media platforms is if someone's having multiple infractions reported, then, yeah, over time, they'll have their account deleted by that social media platform.
Wow,
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say to that. And
I
all,
will say
go ahead.
I will say social media is slow on the uptake to address these things because when you first report it, it goes through their basically technology or software. And if they don't remove the post, you have to either file another formal complaint or just keep reporting it until it triggers a real person review.
Okay.
So I guess one more question with that. Do you have an idea, like percentage wise, how much of this you get versus the positive feedback and the positive interactions with folks? Like what percentage of these bullies and trolls and all that do you think is out there, or at least in your experience?
Trolls are high, but it's stuff like bullying or specific targeted harassment. I've only had 3 incidences where I would quantify that as legitimate targeted harassment. And so in all my years, 12 years, that's a very low incident rate of targeted harassment versus, trolls. Some of them can be bots as well.
Okay.
But
Okay.
overall, like 99% of the time, it's always a positive community or positive feedback. So in the grand scope of things, this is like 1 to 2%
Okay.
of incidences that I've incurred. But again, I use a lot of tools to help moderate my social media platforms to minimize this type of behavior.
Okay. So that actually leads into my next question. And you did say it's a relatively small amount, a percentage of that. And that's because of a lot of the tools you use. But how has this affected your health with this harassment or bullying, trolling, whatever the terminology people are using? How has that affected your overall health? Because you are living with chronic pain, you are living with fibromyalgia. How has it affected your sleep, your mental health, or I guess even your willingness to keep advocating?
Well, in those very specific incidences of cyber stalking or telecommunication harassment, sure, it does impact my mood. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
It does. It does trigger my anxiety. It exasperates it. And it's not necessarily fear, but it's a matter of it's an added stressor that is becoming a main focus in contending with it in those extreme instances where I have to document. I've had to in the past report it to the police.
Wow.
And
Wow.
there are things like I'll block a person on all my social medias, but then they'll message me through my website or message my email. And like every time I open my email, I see new messages. And for a minute there, I get this anxiety jolt of, I hope that it isn't this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does, in context of being threatened, it does and has interfered with my sleep. So when you combine stress and a situation compounding and increasing your anxiety and you can't sleep, then it does negatively compound my medical conditions and I end up becoming less focused because it exasperates my brain fog.
Mm-hmm.
It interferes with my sleep, which then further compounds my chronic fatigue. And then all those things also lead to compounding my chronic pain because not getting the rest and being in a, I guess, altered state of hypervigilance, all those things combined together does negatively impact my health and mental health and exacerbates all those symptoms.
Okay. And on top of all that, you went through a devastating real life crisis. Can you tell us about that fire?
In relation to
Well,
like
the
all this,
fact that
all my
you're it seems like you're always, the stress is just always hitting you.
well, I mean, as a veteran, I have a lot of injuries from my service. I've had multiple surgeries, car accident. I had a fire that was accidentally set by a roofing company. And then contending with utilizing social media for advocacy and awareness and those rare occasions where someone's harassing me. It's learning to compartmentalize each situation and what you need to do for each situation, but also having things in place to help you cope, whether that is having family support, support from friends, or even speaking with a therapist to help process all these instances where you're contending with life situations and then contending with at times these negative situations that evolve on social media. If you don't address it in a proactive therapeutic way, it's going to further compound your overall physical mental health.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, I have engaged in therapy during all these different types of situations of multiple surgeries, car accident, home fire, being harassed online. I'm very fortunate though, and I would say this isn't necessarily the norm for everyone that uses social media for advocacy, but I'm one of those people that is very fortunate that I have a very, very strong support system. I've had people with incidences of being stalked online say, I will come and sit in your driveway at night to make sure this person doesn't do anything if they come over. Or I've had friends both within my state and other states say, come and stay with me for a while.
Okay.
So I have a very strong base of support. And a lot of times it's not the case for advocates in this situation. So I'm grateful that I do and recognize that that is not necessarily the case for everyone else that's utilizing social media while contending with harassment and issues that come up with their chronic illnesses. So that's where I'm fortunate and extremely grateful. Shout out to all my friends, supporters, veterans, family, my local community. I'm very fortunate.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that information. Before we pivot to different tools, is there something that you wish someone would have told you before you became an advocate, such a visible advocate on social media? Is there something that maybe you would have liked to have known prior to doing that?
Utilizing social media as a tool for advocacy and awareness, I already knew going in that there was the potential risk of being trolled or bullied or cyber stalked. I already knew going in because I've seen it with famous people. It happens to people that
Okay.
are
I was gonna say, do you know anybody in particular? But, yeah,
Okay.
you're right. You could see that in the news all the time.
So you were
yeah, and on
okay.
social media.
Okay.
Right,
And
right.
I do know a couple of famous people diagnosed with a chronic illness that when they shared their story, they got some not nice comments. And I'm like, look, I don't know you, Mr. or Miss Celebrity, but I'm here and I'm bringing the heat and I'm going to stand up for you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair. Well,
sometimes people just
yeah.
amaze me with their idiocy.
Yeah, ignorance for sure. Well, let's move into the part of the conversation where we're going to talk about what can we do about it. We want to share some practical steps that people can take if they're facing harmful posts, but also get your perspective, Crystal, on what's actually realistic when you're exhausted and in pain. Maybe you could start with account and privacy basics, safety guides that you could, like you were saying, there are tools online that are built in that you could use, suggesting that you use a digital safety checkup, looking at what's public, what's private, and how easy it is to find personal information about you. Write this all down because it's got a long question.
Don't
Along,
worry, I got you covered.
all right, along with whether or not you are willing to, like you were saying, post your addresses or your family details or your routines and that kind of thing.
So, first and foremost, as far as trying to accommodate my illnesses with time management, I use the social media moderation tools on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads to schedule out my posts instead of constantly manually doing it day to day or every other day. So that saves me some of my energy and wellness pennies not having to do it in real time.
Okay, so you could kind of set it up to post a couple of days in the future, and then you
You
could
could do
take a
it up to
break.
you could schedule out your posts on Facebook and Instagram a year ahead.
I
I
didn't know
didn't know
that.
that either.
I
Wow.
didn't know. We got a lot to learn from you.
So that's one way or one tool I use to manage my time on social media
Sure.
for a couple of reasons. When I schedule out my posts, that means I'm not on constantly manually
Right.
posting, which minimizes reading negative posts from other people because outside of like harassment and bullying online, a lot of people like to go on ranty rants, whether they're correct or not. But I don't want that negativity all the time on my screen. So by scheduling my posts out, I minimize a lot of that negative chatter because I'm not seeing it. So that helps my emotional mojo and my physical well-being by scheduling my posts out.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, and then previously I spoke about there's a whole slew of moderation admin tools you can use on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, I think TikTok, where you could put in keywords that could be triggering for people, like your followers, and essentially you put these keywords in, like, oh, I'm trying to think of a word, like a racial slur
Okay.
or cursing or stuff like that. You could put curse words in there or slurs or hashtags that are meant to be degrading. And if anyone uses those terms, if they write a comment with those terms, it automatically hides the comment.
Okay.
However, trolls and bullies are kind of smart. So they'll use words and let's say that word has the letter O in it. They'll substitute the number 0.
Oh, my
So I have
God.
words that are literally spelled out correctly, variations of that word, along with the potential use of numeric or characters
Yeah.
So
to
I'm
stay ahead.
Can AI help you with that?
Well, no, because this is a moderation tool that's offered through the social media platforms.
Okay.
So AI, you could go into an AI app or AI online to say,
Give me a list of
give me a
possible.
list of how people will say MFer,
Right, right.
all the
To try to
variations,
have your list of
and then
keywords
it
to
can
put in. Okay.
and it could populate the variations, and then you could copy and paste that onto your social media admin tool section
Yeah.
that will say, "Hide comments with these keywords."
Okay. Okay.
but they're always going to be one step ahead of the tools that are out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
But at least you could get. I mean, I'm sure that, like you were saying, there's some smart people out there. Isn't that ironic? They're smart in that way,
Hmm.
but then they're not smart in common sense or courtesy or whatever.
right. But then there's other things, that you can be proactive about. There's so many things people post under their profiles or pages that are they don't realize is identifiable information that these people can use to look them up. I see like on Facebook that people will list their family members. And even if you don't list your city and state, they can go to those family members you've listed. Like if you list a child or your spouse, if they list where they live, then they
Yeah.
can use it
Yeah.
to try to
Right.
find
Right.
you.
Right.
I don't list the actual city I live in. I list the closest major city I live by.
Right.
I rarely post pictures of myself. And if I do from my house, I only choose a couple of areas in my home to take a picture because there's nothing identifiable about it. Like I have bright colors in other parts of my house, but I don't take pictures in there because those colors are very identifiable.
Hmm. Okay.
I
Okay.
also
Yeah, I mean, like
on the
they could be team colors for your local sports team, or I
exactly,
get it. I get it. And we
exactly.
don't really think about that enough. I know that.
I do.
Yeah, you do. But you never know
The
when
other thing
somebody's going
is
to reach in and try to find out more about you through posts
mm,
that you made online that you thought were very. Uh,
innocuous.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But it's
But here's
funny.
the other thing. If I'm out with my friends at a place, they know not to tag me.
Okay.
That's the other thing. I don't know why people will post online and tag the place that they're at in real time. But my friends are very aware of some of this kind of behavior I contend with. So they always ask if they can tag or
Okay.
post and I'll say you could post a photo or add it to your post tomorrow. And the same thing is when I'm at events, including like veteran specific events or health events, I post everything the following day. not in real time.
Okay. That's a good tip.
Especially, I do a lot of nature videos with my dog. I
Right.
never say where I'm at, but I also don't post them in real time
Okay.
because people could take imagery and put it in Google Images to figure out, like, if there's specific, like, monuments or natural occurrences like a cave. They could put that into Google Images to try to figure out where you're at.
Hmm.
So,
Scary,
obviously, this is
scary,
a lot
scary
more
stuff.
It is. It
than
is.
people realize.
You go from social media, just, sharing fun stuff and things like that to, my God, I don't want people to even know I exist other than what I'm posting about what it is I'm posting about. It
Right.
almost sounds like, some of these movies that you see where, everything is so covert and
It is like the movies.
it's ridiculous, but it's sorry to hear, but we appreciate you sharing that because I
Mm.
mean it's real life.
The other big thing is, and I've told people this all the time, you go on vacation and you're posting photos and all that stuff in real time, you're setting yourself up for your house to be robbed while you're
Sure,
Right, right.
yeah,
gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of stats on that and information online that they tell people don't post in real time when you're away from your house on vacation because you're just letting people know you're not home. And there's been this whole huge research that found that a lot of people will kind of go through public profiles on social media within their community are easy to get to and follow like when they're on vacation
Hmm.
and then go break their house.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
it's kind of ridiculous we're at this point in society where you can't share in real time. Like, I'm in the
Yeah,
UK now.
yeah, yeah. I'm having
People
fun in Aruba. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
don't post stuff in real time. Don't post stuff of your kids at the beach in their bathing suits because even if it's set to your friends, there are specifically someone that has tendencies of pedophilia or, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And as I give all these examples, which aren't necessarily related to cyber stalking and telecommunication harassment, they are things that I've thought about for a long time and have realized that while social media can be a great tool in a positive space, you have to be cognizant that there's people out there who abuse that tool, who abuse people online.
100% right. And that's why I said earlier, I mean, you're trying to do, post positive things and be, upbeat, but there's nefarious folks out there that are going to use it for horrible, um, for their own benefit. Let's just
Mhm,
leave it at that.
mhm.
Mhm.
Um, do you mind if we pivot a little bit, and then go into another part that we wanted to touch base about?
Sure.
Okay. The information you're giving about what, not to do, et cetera, is wonderful. What about in the moment? How do you respond in the moment when stuff happens? There's many digital safety resources that
Mhm.
say that the first step is deciding who or what is worth your energy. Um, for trolls and bad faith accounts,
Mm.
the advice is typically don't engage. Use mute. I'm sorry. Use mute and block tools
Mhm.
freely, and also have a simple comment policy. You can point out to when things are being removed because they're abusive. How do
Mhm.
you personally decide when to respond, when to ignore, and when to hit block? And do you have any rules that you've made for yourself?
So typically I don't respond. Like I said, every once in a while, if they give me the opportunity to clap back in a funny way, like when I spoke about the individual that was harassing me and their spelling like tore up from the floor up, then I was like, well, You're accusing me of failing at life, but you obviously failed at your 5th grade spelling quizzes. But other than that, and that's like maybe 2 or 3 times a year I do that.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't respond. Um, and regardless of what type of message or comment it is. But if it's something that is harassing, threatening, if I block someone and they're finding other means to contact me, all I do is collect that information, like snap capturing it. Like if it gets to the point where it's consistent unwanted contact, then I document all that stuff in the event I have to file a police report.
Oh, I was just going to ask you about that. Okay. All right.
There's been a few occasions where I've been threatened, or a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of laws in place, both state and federal in the United States, that address these type of crimes, near crime. So cyber stalking, cyber harassment, continual unwanted contact, threatening someone online or through telecommunications or electronic communication. There's actually laws in place to protect people who are kind of at the brunt end of this abuse, and it's menacing laws, stalking, um, contact with the intent of intimidation. There's other things like trying to slander someone's character. If people post negatively about you on their personal platforms or profiles, that can also be seen as inciting other people to harass you. So there's a ton of laws in place, and I don't think most people know that, and you can Google state laws and federal laws,
Okay.
especially if it's someone that's doing it continuously,
Yeah.
or you block them and they try to find another means to contact you.
What advice would you give to somebody who's not as,
Adept.
I was going to say ballsy, who's not as strong-willed as you are, and who's afraid to make a fuss, but also does not feel safe?
So I don't like to necessarily everybody process it different, and I don't like to tell a person who's a victim of this type of crime what they should do. However, I can give examples of what I've done,
Okay.
and it was my choice. But outside of using social media tools to moderate negative comments and harassment and blocking people, if it's a continued harassment or it's threatening a manner, you can snap capture all those comments, posts, messages, and basically create evidence so that you could file a police report and
Okay.
request a restraining order.
Well,
You could
maybe if they just put that notification on their own website, like due to a recent rash of harassing comments, I just wanted to remind you that I do document, save, and am willing and
I wouldn't do that.
no?
No, because it could scare off people you're trying to support from getting vital information that could help them. You're also ticking off your predator on what you're doing.
Okay,
And
okay.
then sometimes in a situation when they are told to do not contact or have been informed legally not to contact, and they continue to do that, that could lead, especially if they have a restraining order,
Got
immediate arrest.
got it, got it.
And so I know personally about twice a year, I put out like a housekeeping post, reminding people to be supportive, frame information or suggestions in a supportive way versus telling people what they should do or try to manage their like medical illnesses or mental health. I also remind people that my platforms are religiously neutral, politically neutral. Everyone is welcome as long as they're not using different facets of their personal beliefs to start arguments or attack someone else. So I do have standards in place that everybody knows about, and if anyone violates those, you don't get a warning, you get an automatic block, because these are standards I've set so that my communities can be safe for people to interact and learn and support each other, and for the most part, it has been a good way to curtail potential negative commentary within my communities. But there are other ways to get support if you are afraid. There's lots of resources out there if you are experiencing this type of behavior on social media.
All right. Well, good advice. And from our side of the house, we would like to remind folks that reporting all of this type of doxing and hate speech and impersonation, it reporting on it is an option, and it doesn't always work perfectly, but it's one of the tools that we have. And there is organization, well, there are organizations like Penn America, or I don't even, the Safety Net NNEDV, and others. They have step by step guides for what to report and where. I think we'll put links for that on our website. Crystal, have you found any specific resources or organizations especially helpful when it comes to figuring out your next steps?
Sure. Well, one, and the most important is we're talking about community support. So if you are aware of an advocate who has experienced this type of harassment, stalking, bullying online, reach out to them, ask for their insight, how they managed, how they coped with their medical and mental health. But there are also many resources out there who are experiencing cyberbullying and stalking, and several recommended guides, peer groups, advocacy organizations that provide support and resources such as Stop Stalking Us, which offers advice from experts and provides a guide for creating a safety plan to support those being stalked. Cyberbullying Research Center is another resource. They list various organizations on their website that provide help to victims of cyberbullying and online hate, including digital security helplines and emotional support services. There's stopbullying.gov. They provide free and confidential support resources for individuals being bullied, including how to document and report that behavior. There's Coalition Against Stalkerware, which is a free and confidential support resource for individuals being bullied, including how to document that behavior, along with provide options for those who are concerned about potential cyber spying, monitoring, or further stalking. Then there's Spark, spelled with a C, as in Charlie, SPARC, which Spark educates the community on stalking and provides training for professionals to identify and respond to this type of behavior. And then last but not least, Halt the Hate, a nonprofit dedicated to raising awareness and providing support for adults being bullied and creating a safe haven for adults affected by bullying and cyberstalking. These organizations offer a range of services from legal advice and support to emotional and psychological assistance.
That's some phenomenal information. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have you yourself used any of those? What do you do when things get really, really tough, do you utilize those or family? Do you for support?
Uh, I mean, the one resource I did look up and was the let me look here. I did look up like the Cyberbullying Research Center, but also stopbullying.gov because they give you information on how to document this type of cyber behavior that's inappropriate. Like the best way to snap capture posts,
Hmm.
for example, is go back the next day where it shows the date or day. One of the problems was sometimes these people they'll delete the post right away or the comment. So I learned through this website, snap capture it in real time, but then go back the next day or two and see if it's still up and snap capture it again because it will show like the dates
Okay.
as well.
Good advice.
Yeah. So with all of that, and I'm sure sometimes, and you're a pretty strong-willed person. We've realized that through the different conversations we've had with you over the years. But as an advocate, what advice would you give to somebody else who, because of all of the stuff you're talking about, that they might be getting all of this hate mail and trolling and all that? What advice would you have for somebody who's like, you know what, maybe this is just too much. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. What advice would you give to them?
I mean, first and foremost, I've had those feelings myself because it's like, is this worth the aggravation? But I do look at the whole big picture and look at how 99% of the time this isn't an issue, but that doesn't mean that 1% of the time it's not really bad. So to help other individuals that experience this, I felt that way. But one of the things I do is limit my time on social media and schedule out my posts. This way, I'm not spending so much time manually doing this and exposing myself to other people's posts that are negative and not having to feel compelled to read a whole bunch of comments that I don't have time for. And this is kind of prioritizing self care and emotional well being and spending my time focused on things that I love, like music, my friends, family, going on adventures with my dog. And I also give myself space to process these negative experiences so I can address these issues from a more kind of factual or rational space versus emotionally. And for advocates who feel like quitting, finding support systems to help manage social media advocacy challenges can be beneficial. Reaching out to someone you know who's experienced this can be extremely not just helpful, but validating and understanding that you're not alone. Scheduling out your posts if you're experiencing psychic things can help with that as well.
Hmm.
Taking a step back, take a break, it's okay. You don't have to be on social media 24/7. Social media platforms encourage us to post at least every day,
Hmm.
multiple times a day to keep yourself in their algorithm. But I'm like, look, your algorithm isn't worth my aggravation. So
Right. Right. Right.
I have taken a step back for a few days. And for some people, that's a few weeks or a few months. That's okay too. You got to do what's best for you and realize that you have resources out there. You have fellow advocates who have experienced the same thing that will support you and validate your experience. But most importantly, this is a form of abuse and it does affect your mental health and physical health. And I encourage people going through this type of situation to reach out for mental health, emotional support, and also keep your medical providers apprised of this because there's certain things like exasperated anxiety and you're not sleeping, and that affects your blood pressure. And then it can affect so many other physical things in your body. So letting them know, I've been stressed out because I've been experiencing this on social media, and that is contributing to my anxiety, interfering with my sleep, increasing my blood pressure. And these are potential reasons why my symptoms are worse or why my mood is not good. So it's not just your mental health, but your physical health. Keep your entire care team on the same page when you're experiencing these things.
Okay. Well, Crystal, thank you for your honesty and for being willing to talk about the hard parts of advocacy, not just the highlight reel. And to anyone who's listening who's been targeted online, you're not alone and none of this is your fault. If you're dealing with trolls, bullies, or people twisting your words, it's okay to protect yourself by tightening your settings on social media, using mute and block tools, documenting what happens, and reaching out for help. And like you said, your safety and well being matter more than any algorithm. So take care of yourself.
And if you are able to, remember that your voice does make a difference. As Crystal mentioned about taking breaks, you're allowed to take a break. Set those boundaries, and go back to posting whatever, whenever you feel comfortable, whenever you feel that it's right for you. But you don't have to be in the game every day.
Right. We're gonna leave it to you to finish up, Crystal.
Okay. So
Kind of
as
putting you on the spot a
advocates,
little bit.
it's okay. I'm used to it. Not necessarily with you guys, but just in general. As advocates, we use social media to create safe online communities where patients can connect, find support, and share their stories. It's equally important for advocates, caregivers, and patient leaders to maintain their own supportive networks. If you have an advocate that you look up to or see as a mentor or an organization that you respect, or someone you know who has faced this type of harassment or stalking on social media, reach out to them. I shared my experiences on social media before about being cyber stalking, harassed, and threatened. As a result, I had so many people reach out to me, overwhelming reach out,
Right.
not just in support, but also sharing their own experiences that were similar to mine.
So
And
so your experience and you sharing that experience opened up a communication barrier that might have been there before. People might not
Mhm.
wanted to have talked about it. They might have been afraid to talk about it, but they're like, well,
Yep.
if Crystal can do it, I can do it.
Or promoting public awareness opens the door of conversation where people feel safe to talk about it or reach out to you individually to provide support or share their own experiences. I don't want to necessarily say if Crystal can do it, that he'll, but it's a topic that isn't talked about enough, and people don't realize there's a lot of victims of this type of behavior, and cultivating those conversations in a public forum actually can help deter it in the future. If these type of individuals want to engage in this type of behavior, they're being put on notice that we're going to talk about this publicly if you do it.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I hope this is not inappropriate to say, but it's almost like a part of like the Me Too movement.
Right.
That maybe
I wouldn't
people,
say that's necessarily inappropriate because from my own personal experiences and from people who've experienced this type of behavior were sent messages that were sexually inappropriate or being solicited or being sent
wow,
sexually explicit imagery that they did not want. And that is part of
the Me Too movement.
sexual
Yeah.
So when I mentioned that, though, I wasn't actually going there, and I'm really sorry that that's the
Oh, it's
case.
okay. It's
But it was,
important to bring
yeah.
it
Yeah,
to
it
light.
is. It is
The,
important.
the reason I said it though is, I mean, people might have that happen to them, but don't realize that it's happening to so many other people. And if there's a forum where people are sharing their stories, then that one person is like, wow, it's not just me. There's a whole group of people that are experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, this is a type of crime that just seems to be on the down low. My perspective in life, whether it's this, chronic illness, a societal issue, or something I'm passionate about, I'm like, if this is happening to me, it's gotta be happening to
Yeah.
someone else. So let's talk and share receipts and spill the tea.
You
For
go.
real.
There you go. Well, this episode is starting our mini series on mental health, realizing that the victims, I'm going to call them victims of cyberbullying, are in need of mental health to get through the terrible events that people are doing to them online. And the people that are doing this bullying, they need mental health themselves, because
Hmm.
if that's what they have to do to make themselves important, there's something missing. So I think both sides are going to need mental health during this. And just remember, this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
Till next week.